Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
It's a Clemson offense, a Clemson defense, a Clemson philosophy. Coaches are going to come and go, but we don't change per a coach. Most people will watch us and they won't see anything different as far as how we play.
Disappointing to walk out here with a loss because we pitched well enough to win, and if we could have kind of held our own offensively, give credit to Furman's two arms. They threw the ball very, very well.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome into Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network here on a beautiful Wednesday afternoon in the Palmetto State. Phil Kornbluth coming to you from the Grand Strand today at our Myrtle Beach headquarters on a beautiful day in South Carolina. Pro, what is it that everybody should be out doing?
Jogging. That's what I did early this afternoon.
It's a form of exercise. I'm talking about playing golf.
Oh, you mean a bad walk spoiled?
Yes, a bad walk made even worse. Had a great time down here playing golf today at the beautiful Myrtlewood Golf Course, and now looking forward to the next couple of hours with you here on Sports Talk. We're pretty wide open tonight. We got time for your phone calls. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com. We'll have Mike Morgan with us with our Braves report coming up. Braves got hammered last night by the Mets. We'll get Mike's take on that. You heard Chad Holbrook from last night. USC got great pitching, played decent enough defense, but got beat by Furman. Furman was just a little bit better, Pro, winning 2-1, and Clemson got swept last night in Athens 7-0. So here we go again. Just when things look like they were starting to turn, we go back the other direction.
Yeah, and of course they both have big conference series on the road coming up. I think just up the road, Clemson heads to Atlanta to take on Georgia Tech, and South Carolina. Always a dangerous team when you play Tennessee up in Knoxville. You don't know what the weather's going to be like. So, they kind of stubbed their toes just when they look like they may have just turned the corner.
All right, let's open up the lines. Love to hear from the listeners around the state tonight about the many topics we've been talking about this week. The changes with the high school league and the classifications that came down yesterday. The Shamik Blackshear decision that came down yesterday. What's going on with baseball, of course, and anything else you want to discuss. We'll update Ted Mack and tell you what's happening with him today. So we've got plenty to discuss for you tonight here on Sports Talk. 800-956-7266. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com. On Twitter, it's @SportsTalkSC. The website, sportstalksc.com. And on Facebook, it is Sports Talk Radio Network. That's how you can reach out to us here on Sports Talk as we reach out to you over the airwaves. And don't forget, should you lose us over the airwaves for one reason or another, you can stay with us on our website, sportstalksc.com. We have the live audio stream, and we have the live video stream down at the bottom of the page. So no reason for you not to stay with us. We'll be right back here on Sports Talk. Don't go away. And we come to you from our Myrtle Beach Bureau of Sports Talk, hard by the number 14 green at the Myrtlewood Golf Course, the Palmetto course, which is a beautiful, beautiful golf course. Great day out here playing golf today with some folks.
Okay, and Phil will be back with us momentarily. As we spoke about early on, those midweek woes by South Carolina and Clemson in baseball, just when you thought they were about to turn the corner to sweep over the Duke Blue Devils, at least in the doubleheader. Of course, the third game was rained out on Sunday of last week, but the Tigers had won 2 consecutive ACC series. The bats were heating up. The pitching was going great. You had some reinforcements in the pitching staff back. And you thought, hey, Clemson is ready for a stretch run. South Carolina, of course, coming up like Lazarus from the dead, knocking off 4th-ranked and defending national champion Vanderbilt over the week. But then they stumbled at Fluor Field against Furman 2-1, just could not get out of the way of themselves. Played good defense, great pitching, but the bats just did not heat up. As for Clemson, the bats did not heat up in Georgia yesterday, aided by an error in the bottom of the first inning. Georgia scored 4 runs in the bottom of the first, and pretty much that's all they needed as they shut out Clemson last night 7-0. Also, we could tell you that more honors in for women's basketball coach Dawn Staley, as she is now the coach of the under-19 team. Of course, she coached the under-18 national team last year and led them to gold last year. Now she will be coaching the under-19 team. And, Corn, as I said before, when you get Dawn Staley in with a lot of young women, coaching them up, and it's almost like letting the fox in the hen house, because you know she's probably talking to some of these young ladies about maybe joining her in Columbia at some point.
Yeah, don't think that doesn't work in her favor, and don't think that doesn't irritate other coaches, but she's earned it. She's earned that right because of her success and her contribution to the game of basketball. As I was saying before the line dropped, I was just going to mention that I played, speaking of basketball, with Eddie Fogler yesterday. Had a great time playing with the coach, got a little bit of his cash, which is always good to put in my pocket. But just want to let everybody know that former Gamecock basketball coach Eddie Fogler is alive and well and doing very well, still living in Columbia, putting together holiday basketball tournaments and putting together coaches looking for jobs with schools looking for coaches. All right, so a little update there for you on Eddie Fogler. 800-956-7266. We're pretty wide open for your phone calls tonight. I know that sometimes we don't have a whole lot of time, but tonight we do have time to take your calls and hear what's on your mind about things that have been going on as we are kind of in the dog days of the latter part of spring, heading towards summer, and waiting for SEC and ACC football media days to roll around. Though we haven't forgotten about baseball, of course. We still have SEC, ACC tournaments, Big South, Southern Conference, etc. All that coming up to keep us busy. So with that said, let's jump to the phones. 800-956-7266. We go to Gaffney. First off tonight, we welcome Tim into Sports Talk. Hello, Tim. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How you guys?
We are great. Good to have you with us.
2 questions. First question is the baseball playoffs started today with Clemson or Carolina, either one, even be in the playoffs.
You know, I saw a projection online by one baseball outfit or expert, had South Carolina as a number 3 seed playing in the Miami, Florida regional with Coastal Carolina in that regional. So some people seem to think so. Clemson, you know, the Tigers, the ACC with a high RPI as a league, and right now they have the 4th best record in the league. You know, I would think today they would be in the NCAA tournament as well. Now, the key for both teams down the stretch here is just not to collapse. You know, don't of course, they both lose last night. That doesn't help. And they've got to win. They have to win every time out now, or they've got to win these league series the rest of the way to really ensure their postseason spot.
Okay,
you agree,
and then,
Tim?
Then my other question is on the high school league realignment. I guess
Yes.
they're going to be going to like a 5A. And I guess my question is, I guess most of the 5A schools would be what would be probably considered the Big 16 and closer to that into 4A. And I know there's a lot of new schools being built. Are there any new schools that when all this goes in effect that could jump straight into like 5A or 4A? And I'll hang up and listen.
All right, thank you very much. We really won't know who's going to fit in where until enrollment figures are determined. I mean, we pretty much know, like we know Wando's going to be, it's the biggest school in the state enrollment-wise. It's going to be 5A, Somerville, the traditional big schools. I'm not sure. We had David Shelton on with us last night. Right now, I'm not sure what the cutoff line's going to be for 5A and 4A and so on and so forth. That is, I think, still to be determined. And then we're going to have to wait for enrollment figures to come out. I imagine they're going to wait and use enrollment figures after this academic year to draw those lines and decide who's going to fit where.
I don't want to put words in David's mouth, but I thought he said something about Wando, of course, having the largest school at about 3,900, and he thought the cutoff would be at maybe 2,200 or 2,500. I'm not sure, but that's what I thought I heard from him last night when he was talking about the new 5A. Of course, in these new alignment, they're going to be looking at, I guess, some of the rivalries they don't want to break up. Also, traveling conditions, that sort of thing. See if they can maybe compartmentalize some of these classifications so we can have maybe lessen the travel burden on some schools as well.
Yeah, I agree. You got to keep some of these natural rivalries together within region if you can. Don't want to break those up if at all possible. All right, back to the phones we go. 800-956-7266 down to Ladson. Reggie, welcome into Sports Talk tonight. How are you, sir?
Fine, fellas. How you doing this fine Wednesday afternoon?
Man, we're doing great. Good to have you with us.
Hey, quick question about the NFL schedule. Well, I realize being like next year is going to be the 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl.
Yes,
and they're trying to line some of the teams up, some teams that played in the Super Bowl. How come they didn't put? You got to put a Cowboy Steelers game together. Those are some of the classic Super Bowls. You kind of missed the boat on that one.
Yeah, they missed the boat on that one for the Carolina Panthers at Dallas on Thanksgiving Day. By the way, Corn, that opens up the door for me to tell you that the NFL went ahead and said, well, even though he probably got away, the charges were dropped. We thought Kevin Hardy's problems he had, Greg Hardy, I'm sorry, his domestic problems, he was culpable, and they've already told him don't bother about suiting up for 10 games. He's been suspended for the first 10 games of the season.
Cowboys play at Charlotte this coming season, don't they? Will he be back for that game?
No, they actually the Panthers go to Jerry's playpen.
Oh, okay. They are playing each other. They are playing each other.
And guess what game that is? That's Dallas's 11th game. So he'll be eligible to play against the Panthers.
Well, that is also Thanksgiving night, is it not?
That's correct.
Yeah. Boy, Thanksgiving is going to be really interesting around here with that game, of course, and then the big game nationally, of course, the afternoon games, but then that night game, Green Bay and Chicago, with the plan to retire Brett Favre's jersey that day, that night. Boy, that's going to be something. Not to mention, of course, the importance of the ball game, which is going to be huge.
Now, will they just retire his jersey there, or he'll also retire his Vikings and Jets and Atlanta jersey as well?
I think it's only Green Bay's jersey that's going up in the rafters. They have rafters at Lambeau Field. I think it's only his jersey that's going up there. So, but nice try. Thanks for your phone call. We'll continue with calls in just a moment right here on Sports Talk. back at Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Good to have you with us tonight, wherever you are dialed in. Sports Talk. Phil Kornblut in Myrtle Beach, Professor Tom Hayes, studios in downtown Columbia on Main Street. K-Mac is off again tonight, and we have the stateman Graham Pope once again behind the bulletproof glass. Couple of quick notes. Citadel's new basketball coach, Duggar Balcom, has announced his coaching staff will include Daniel Willis, Ryan Maddox, and Willie Bell for the upcoming season. So those will be the assistant coaches there for the Citadel. Also, Clemson baseball announced that the Tigers have added a game against Wofford. That'll be on May the 5th at 6 o'clock, and they'll play that game at Wofford. Tigers' first game at King Field since 2004. This replaces the rained-out game against Duke. And the Newberry baseball team, for the first time in its history, is ranked in the Southeast Regional rankings. The Wolves are 33-16. They're ranked number 6 behind Catawba, North Georgia, Mount Olive, UNC Pembroke, and Columbus State. They're having a heck of a year. Back to the phones we go. We have Vern with us in Bishopville. Hi, Vern, and welcome into Sports Talk.
Hello, Mr. Kornblut. How you doing?
I am doing great, sir. How are you? Yeah, doing outstanding. How about you?
Yes, I'm doing real well because I heard Mr. Shamik Blackshear's cleared all charges.
This is correct. The charges were dropped. Yeah, charges were dropped.
Hey.
The complainants decided not to pursue the issue with him.
Okay. Yes. That's good. That's very good. Yeah, that's very good. Yes, I heard you when you asked his lawyer yesterday why did the police came to the schoolhouse and made that big scene with him like that.
Correct.
That's why. I can tell you why they did it, but I'm not going to pursue that. I'm just glad the young man has really got himself where he can maybe come to the University of South Carolina and complete his education, maybe play some football along with it and stuff, thing like that. And maybe he'll walk straight from now on and try not to move to the left. You know why?
Why do you think the police did what they did? Come on, this is a sports talk program. Share your opinion.
Come on, Phil. You know
I'm
why
asking you an honest question.
Oh yeah, I've been the answer since you asked me to. And now you know this is a young black teenager and stuff. Their intent was to come to the schoolhouse and stuff, and hopefully would run so they can shoot him down.
Ooh.
That's my opinion. That's what they were hoping he would have did. So, but he didn't do that. He took his medicine. He stayed in the jail, and I'm sure his parents come and got him out or whatever. I'm just glad he did that. I'm glad he didn't ran from him and stuff and things like that. Because like I said, I got boys and stuff. I got 5 of them, and I know how it is and stuff. He being black and everything, but I'm not being prejudiced or racist or nothing. But I'm just glad he just sat there and let them do what they wanted to do, and we went along with him.
Yep, absolutely. No sense to panic and create a bigger and worse situation than it already was. Thank you so much for the call. We'll be right back. We are back at Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network, right here on a Wednesday night. Phil Kornblut and the Professor, Tom Hayes, with you. 800-956-7266, the number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. If you haven't signed up to join us on Twitter, my Lord, what are you waiting on? Get it done and be a part of our Twitter timeline, our Twitter family. Keep up with what we put out there. In fact, if you were with us on Twitter this morning, we tweeted out that Tevin Mack from Dreer meeting today with Shaka Smart. Shaka Smart was in Columbia to have a face-to-face. Today's the last day coaches can be out to meet face-to-face with the 2015 recruits, I do believe. So Shaka Smart got to Columbia to meet with Tevin Mack. Yesterday it was an assistant coach from Kansas, Norm Roberts, the former head coach at St. John's, who's now an assistant coach at Kansas. And, of course, South Carolina, Clemson, Georgia, all very much in the mix with him right now as well. We'll give you more recruiting coming up. Another big story bubbling with Oklahoma City firing Scott Brooks as their coach. There is talk of Billy Donovan possibly leaving Florida to be the next coach of Oklahoma City. That's what reportedly the signs are pointing to. He's a friend of the GM at Oklahoma City. Boy, would that throw everything into a whirlwind. And would they just turn to Anthony Grant and plug him in as a new head coach at Florida?
Well, you know,
if Billy Donovan were to leave.
Well, you know, it's interesting. That's the scenario that would have happened, about 4 or 5 years ago if Billy Donovan would have gone ahead and taken the Orlando Magic job. You can almost see what's happening here because the other name you're hearing is Kevin Ollie of UConn. Now, people will say, well, you know, he's only got a couple of years in college, and, of course, he's won one national title. But this is a guy who played for 10 NBA teams just in essence because they wanted a coach in uniform, and he groomed a lot of the point guards, including LeBron James, a point forward, when he was coming into the league. So this is a guy who's been a mentor-type coach even in his 10-year playing career in the NBA. That tells me that they think that probably Kevin Durant and maybe some others, maybe down the road Russell Westbrook, will bolt and go for sunnier climes or larger cities, and they want a college coach in there to bring in college guys and coach and teach. That's what it seems like to me.
Well, you hate it for Scott Brooks. I mean, it's not his fault that Durant was hurt all season. It's not his fault that Westbrook was in and out of the lineup. It's not his fault that Ibaka was hurt, and you fire the coach. It's amazing how you go from being a great coach to a lousy coach, depending on who your peers are. The guy at Miami, Spoelstra, he was a great coach when he had LeBron and the other guys. Now all of a sudden he's just another average run-of-the-mill coach. So it's really about those players and who you have that I'm not saying that great coaching doesn't make a difference, and a good coach can make a good team or a excellent team even better, and a bad coach can pull them down. I'm saying that, but by and large, it's who you got there in uniform. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Today, the ACC held its spring conference call for its football coaches to give them a chance to review their respective football practices here in the spring. Of course, we had Tony Elliott on from Clemson last night, the offensive coordinator. Dabo Swinney was the first one up on the conference call this morning. Here's Dabo as he talks to the media around the country and reviews the Tigers spring that just wrapped up just a few weeks ago, and he was pretty pleased by it all.
Well, really pleased with the spring that we had. Very competitive. I think that we certainly got better. The spring went along. It was really cool to have 15 mid-years going through spring with us. That's unusual. So the majority of our team was here on campus. And, we were able to come out of it, very healthy. So a lot of good things accomplished. And, now it's about, taking those things into the summer and, really trying to transform and come back in August better than we were in April. That's the key. So, but I like our team. I like the opportunity that we have. I think we got the intangibles and the makings of a good team. But, now we got to go pull it all together. If we can do that, then I think we've got a chance to have a good season.
I want to ask you about Deshaun Watson. How's his health now? What kind of activity was he able to do this spring? And then just as a quick follow-up, in which areas do you see him making the most growth from year 1 to year 2?
His rehab is way ahead of schedule, and he's just a great worker in everything that he does. But he was able to do a lot this spring. From a football standpoint, drill work, things like that, and throwing. But we didn't him in any type of situations. But every day, every team period, he would kind of only rep. I really just basically had him with me the whole time when we would do our competitive team stuff, and so he had to mentally really stay sharp. So it was a good spring, got a lot done. I think as far as going into this season, this time last year he was just trying to kind of earn his way, if you will, and now he's just a whole another level from a mentality standpoint in that he's had great success. His games. He's played at Georgia. He's played in Tallahassee. His confidence is not that it was not good last year, but it's one thing to plan to go do it. It's another thing when you've done it and you draw on that experience. So just expect him to kind of take it to another level from a mental standpoint.
Hey, Dabo, I wanted to ask you about a topic that folks are talking about now, the issue of the satellite camps, and I think this might come up at your spring meetings next month, but, what's your take on whether you guys should be now allowed to participate in those because other conferences are allowed to?
Well, I'm against it. I mean, I think that from a conference standpoint, we and SEC and ACC, we've had rules against that for several years. I think it's a loophole that people are taking advantage of, and I think that it's something that needs to be addressed. I don't think it's a good thing because I think ultimately what happens is instead of having camps, you're having combines, and I think there's enough of that, and it just you're going to have camps in every city, and basically again it just becomes a combine. But my philosophy is we put a tremendous amount of emphasis on our camp here at Clemson, and I want to get guys on this campus. That's the best part of our of everything that we do from a recruiting standpoint is just our campus itself. And so we can go out on the road and recruit and evaluate and do the things that we need to do, but we want to get guys here to Clemson, and because we know if they come, then we've got a good shot from a recruiting standpoint. So it's something that'll probably come to a head one way or another, but I don't have a problem with it because it's within the rules, and but really hadn't been that big of an issue with us.
Morning, Coach. I want to ask you, with the cost of attendance legislation, do you see a potential concern or pitfall in terms of differential between what schools can offer in cost of attendance? Do you see that having an impact, I wonder, in recruiting?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, it's a nightmare. I just think that the intent is good because I think we're finally modernizing the scholarship to reflect 2015. And there's a lot of positives that are coming about, even last year being able to actually feed our guys like we need to be able to feed them. And, I think that was a positive, and they tried the stipend thing. It didn't go through. And so basically this is, the way that they're getting that done, but there's some unintended consequences, and there's no question. It's not a level playing field, and it is going to be, the number one topic at all the coaches, meetings, because it's not good.
Dabo Sweeney from his conference call. All of it is up on our website, sportstalksc.com. You can check it out there. Braves Report, Mike Morgan, coming up. Is that picture of that picture? Can you see that Confederate picture in the background there? I don't want that to be in the background. There we go. Yeah. It's time for our Braves Report tonight, starring Mike Morgan, brought to you by Play It Again Sports off Bauer Parkway in Columbia, where you pay less for more. Chris Mosley and the friendly staff will help you with the best selection of golf clubs in the Midlands for adults and juniors. By Founders Federal Credit Union, helping South Carolinians attain their financial goals. And by Mattress by Appointment, real simple, you call and you save 50 to 80% on premium mattress sets. Call 803-530-8549. That's 803-530-8549. And now Mike Morgan joins us. And, you know, you said, hey, what's going to happen when the Braves have to run out some of their lesser pitchers? Happened last night against the Mets, and we saw what happened.
Yeah, we did. Trevor Cahill's a guy that I don't think is going to be in the rotation a month from now, maybe not 2 weeks from now. You know, Roger McDowell, the pitching coach, has done a terrific job over the years with what you would call reclamation projects. The most recent example was what he did with Aaron Harang. Aaron Harang was thought to be done. They get him for $1 million, which for a Major League Baseball veteran is dirt cheap, and he gives him a good year. You know, that's was the hope with Cahill, but I just don't know if Cahill has the kind of stuff left in the tank that Harang did. So this would be a huge reclamation project if it works. Stoltz is a little bit different story. I mean, he's just a guy that's still trying to prove that he can be a consistent starter in Major League Baseball. But both of them right now are struggling, and it's a big start for Stoltz to kind of make a statement that, hey, I belong and I'm here for the long term.
Obviously Mike Minor is still on the shelf. If Stoltz and Cahill continue to struggle, would they have to maybe reluctantly bump up one of their guys on the farm maybe earlier than they expect to?
Yeah, I think Fulton Avich would be the guy there. He's the one that came from the Astros and the Evan Gattis trade. And, much like the Kimbrel trade and some of the other deals, a lot of the fans hated to see those guys go. Gattis was a very popular player and certainly provides some power that you love to have for the catcher's spot. But the bright spot was they got some good people in return, including Fulton Avich, who is a guy that throws upper 90s. I mean, he has major league stuff. He's just fine doing it right now at the AAA level. He does have some major league experience, so he's not completely foreign to that level of competition. So that, to me, that would probably be the first guy off the list if they decide to make a move.
Mike, what about the Mets now? They're off to an incredible start. They're going for their 10th straight win. They've got a great start going at home, 8 straight home wins to start the season, best in team history, 11-3, best start for them since '86 when they won it all. Do they have staying power in New York?
I think they do. I think, look, Washington is still, to me, the class of the division. It would be shocking to me if somehow they failed to win it, considering the unbelievable amount of pitching. And, oh, by the way, they've got guys like Harper and Zimmerman. Jason Worth will be back soon enough for them. They've got a lot of offensive weapons, too. You'd be hard-pressed to find a weakness on that ball club. With the Mets, it's not a great lineup. It as good as the pitching is right now, it's not a great offensive lineup, but I think it's good enough to where if they now have a little bit of fire in their belly, they should be a competitor, at least for a wild card spot before season's end. I don't think it's a fluke at this point. I think they've got enough to where they're not going to, win the whole thing, but I do think they're a contender this season.
All right, what's ahead for you with college baseball coming up this weekend?
Yeah, leaving tomorrow for the Plains. Got a 3-game series, all three Auburn against Georgia, both teams trying to make that last push, much like a lot of teams like a South Carolina, et cetera, to make sure that they do just enough to not only the SEC tournament, but maybe make a case for the NCAA tournament. So one of those teams will probably be eliminated for all intents and purposes, and the other one will still have some hope.
Mike, as always, we appreciate it. Have yourself a great night, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Mike Morgan, our Braves report here on Sports Talk. Earlier today, the White Sox shut out Cleveland 6-0, about to get underway. The Cubs in Pittsburgh, Baltimore and Toronto. The Yankees in Detroit. Yankees won last night, if you didn't notice. Miami and Philadelphia, St. Louis and Washington. A little bit later on, it's Boston and Tampa Bay. Cincinnati, Milwaukee, Minnesota, KC, San Diego and Colorado, and Arizona, Oakland and the Angels, Houston and Seattle, and the Dodgers. San Francisco. San Francisco beat the Dodgers up pretty good last night in San Fran. That's our.
And, of course, the Giants were mired in just a terrific slump. They were at the bottom of the West at that time, so the Giants, they had to get to their rival, the Dodgers, to finally wake up. I think they still miss a lot of their bats that left, including Pablo Sandoval. And just looking up some of the things, the NBA playoffs continue tonight. It's kind of tough to get into the playoffs early because those early rounds, the games are played about a week between each other. As far as or it seems that way. Tonight, Brooklyn is at the Hawks. The Hawks lead that series 1-0. Memphis hosting Portland. They lead that series 1-0. And the Clippers hosting San Antonio Spurs. Of course, the Spurs are down 0-1 in that series. They will be playing at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. And I think Horn has the recruiting for us as he returns. And he is not returning. Well, while he gets that recruiting going, I can tell you that it seems now that they've got a great record in the East, and now they found their owner, apparently, meaning the Atlanta Hawks. Billionaire philanthropist Anthony Ressler leads a group that has agreed to purchase the Hawks for an amount believed to be a little less than $1 billion. That's according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Now, the group will include former NBA player and former Duke star Grant Hill, as well as Marquise Jets co-founder Jesse Itzler and his wife Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanex. But Ressler, who is 55, will be the clear majority owner. And current co-owner Michael Guerin Jr. will retain a percentage of the franchise, and the group will include several other minority investors as well, including the former star whose statue sits outside the arena there in Atlanta in Dominique Wilkins. So that looks like that group has agreed to purchase the Hawks. As far as sports is concerned, we can discuss in the second hour, of course, what's going to happen to these baseball teams, South Carolina and Clemson, as they struggle to try to make hay in their respective conferences over the weekend, as we return to Corn for a little recruiting news.
Yeah, let me see if I can drop in a couple of quick notes here before the top of the hour. I mentioned earlier in basketball, Tevin Mack from Dreer meeting today with Shaka Smart from Texas. He met with Kansas assistant yesterday. This one still seems to be a little bit a ways away from being resolved. In football, offensive lineman Josh Ball from Fredericksburg, Virginia, is very high on South Carolina. He's been there. He's also been to Penn State, Virginia, going to West Virginia this week, and he's got 22 offers, but he's got South Carolina, Penn State, Florida State, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, top of his list right now. And receiver DeAndre Overton of Greensboro, North Carolina, he met with the USC Sean Elliott on Tuesday, continues to favor, but is receptive to overtures from other schools, and USC's trying to get in the mix. Clemson is coming in soon to visit with him. In fact, he's expecting Robbie Caldwell and Jeff Scott on Thursday. Right now, it's Clemson number 1 with him, and Tennessee number 2, and Alabama moving up, especially if they offer. There you go. Couple of recruiting items, top of the hour. We'll be back.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
And we're back. It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We are coming to you from Myrtle Beach tonight, as well as from our studios in downtown Columbia. Phil Kornbluth here, Professor Tom Hayes there, along with the steak man, Graham Pope. 800-956-7266 is our number, and we are pretty wide open in this hour for you to join us here on Sports Talk. Plenty of things to talk about, and we'd love to hear from you to get your opinions on some things. Good, bad, or indifferent. What are you bothered about right now in your sports world? Be you a Tiger, a Gamecock, a Chanticleer, a Cougar, a Wolf, or anybody else, a Paladin, a Bulldog? What are you concerned about? What's bothering you in your sports world? Maybe you're a Braves fan. You're a little upset about what happened last night. Whatever it is that you'd like to discuss, we've got time and room for you here in this hour of Sports Talk. So we'd like to open up the lines and hear from you. 800-956-7266 is the phone number. A couple of other notes to pass along. The bracket for the Paradise Jam in the Virgin Islands this coming November set today, and USC will play DePaul in the opening round, and this will be on November 20th. The other first-round matchups will be Ohio and Tulsa, Indiana State, Norfolk State, and Hofstra against Florida State. USC men's golf team coming off a strong showing in the SEC tournament. The USC team is ranked number 6 in the golf stat relative rankings behind Florida State, Texas, Arizona State, Illinois, and Vanderbilt. Then it's LSU, Oregon, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma rounding out your top 10. The ACC Men's Golf Championship is coming up this weekend. Also, speaking of golf, the USC women, they also had a very strong outing in the SEC tournament, and the USC women are still number 2 in the golf stat relative rankings released today. And the NCAA regional selections will be announced on Monday for both the men and the women. So we'll be looking forward to that to see where our teams in our state will be for the upcoming NCAA tournament. University of South Carolina announced today a significant gift from Morris and Sheila Kreger to the women's basketball program. The gift fully endows a women's basketball scholarship honoring graduating senior Elisa Welch, while also contributing to women's basketball and facility enhancement. All right, so there you go. The Kregers, or is it Kriegers? The Kregers? Kreggers.
Sorry, Krieger. I would think it's
the Kriegers live in Columbia, longtime supporters of the athletic department. And this is the first fully endowed scholarship for women's basketball. You know, I feel a little funny talking about something being fully endowed and it being women's basketball. You know what I mean? We have to hit a break.
Oh, boy.
We'll be back with more sports talk in a moment. Don't go away. We are back. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at sportstalksc. Lines are open for you. If you'd like to join us on the program tonight, love to hear from you and get your thoughts on whatever it is that's on your mind. A couple of things I want to talk about. First of all, I am really concerned about all this transferring happening in college basketball. Now, you know, I know people say, it's too bad K-Mac's not with us tonight because I know what he would say. He would say, well, you know, coaches, they get up and leave and they go take other jobs and da-da-da-da. And I get that. But we are having chaos. We are having pure chaos in college basketball now. I don't know what the number is, but it may be approaching, you know, 1,000.
Yeah, well, I think
it's got to be more than that. But here's the thing I want to get to, Pro, and this is where they've got to do something. You know, they had a decent idea, I guess. I don't know why they came up with the idea that a player who is graduating from a school and he's in his last year and he wants to go somewhere else for graduate school and to continue his career, he can do so without penalty as long as he goes to a school that offers the graduate course that his current school does not. Well, you know, that's easy to get around. You just, you know, decide where you want to go and then decide what you want to study in graduate school. But what is happening, I am told, in college basketball circles, and this is, see, the problem with college athletics is they come up with a somewhat decent idea and then it gets abused. It gets abused by the coaches. It gets abused in recruiting. And what happened is you got coaches, you know, in January and February who start looking up and down rosters of teams around the country and identifying players who will be in that situation and who might be willing to move. Then they get in touch with, let's say, the AAU coach with that player or somebody connected with that player, and let him know that, hey, you want to make a move? We got a spot for you here at Joe Blow University. And what happens at Joe Blow University, if they get a chance to get a better player who's willing to transfer, well, they might run off a player or two from their roster to make room. So it's created, I think, a certain amount of chaos. It's created a certain amount of craziness in the all season in college basketball. And, I mean, we're seeing players, especially these players with 1 year of eligibility who are graduating early, they're just up and moving for no good reason, simply to make a move and to go somewhere else. In some cases, a player wants to try to move up and play in a larger program for whatever reason. I mean, look at UNC Asheville. You know, they're a mediocre Big South basketball program, but in the last couple of years, they've developed a couple of really good players. And one of them leaves and goes to LSU, Hornsby, becomes a very good player. Now they have the guard who averaged 20 points a game each of the last 2 years, and now he's up and leaving and wanting to go somewhere else. So, I understand the need and the desire for a certain amount of freedom, but too much freedom in terms of the organization of a sport, it can be a bad thing, I think, sometimes.
Well, see, here's where I get to the point where, you know, yes, you want to win, but now it's desperate to win because, as we said before, the money is not the root of all evil. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. And everybody sees all this money and they want instantaneous gratification. So what's happened is we have turned some major college basketball into the NBA. Let's face it, because if you look at it, it's not building a roster for the future. It's building to win now, this year. You know, we've seen it at Kentucky. We're now seeing it at bastions of what we call holier than thou college basketball, like Duke taking the one and done. So it's almost like you're putting together a whole new team every year. And it looks like, and you talk about looking at seniors, that reminds me of guys looking over the roster. Where can we get a veteran who's a good guy? Let's look at the D League and see if they have somebody we can bring up. In this case, the D League would be, for example, UNC Asheville. So it's almost like you're looking at the waiver wire. You're looking to build for now. Let's get some guys in here who can win now. And the rest of the years, you're thinking about forming a team over a 4-year period, be damned. I mean, it's just build for 1 year.
And we are forgetting about the primary reason for college athletics to exist and for colleges to exist, and that is to give athletes an opportunity.
Oh, okay.
Well, I hear you. To give athletes an opportunity to get an education at that school that they choose from the beginning. Now, I understand that circumstances change, coaches change, players are unhappy with the system, et cetera, et cetera. I understand that. But where there is no change and a player just ups and just wants to up and leave for the purpose of moving on, I got a bit of a problem with that, especially after a school has invested a lot of money in you. You're there for 3 years. The school's invested, depending on what the cost of attendance is and all that, it could be anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000. Then you up and leave, and maybe somebody does contact you through back circles and says, hey, you're going to be a guy that can leave and be eligible right away. Why don't you come to our place? For example, I just saw here a tweet. Let me go back and find it here. This affects South Carolina. Jaron Cena, who is transferring, the guard who is transferring from
Seton Hall.
Yeah, I just saw where he has committed to George Washington. So he had visited South Carolina. They had gone after him. He is not one who's eligible right away, I don't believe. He's a fourth-year guy. I think he's going to have to sit out the year. But you can take him off the board with South Carolina. Jaron Cena has committed to George Washington now. So the Gamecocks are still pursuing Ellison. They're still pursuing Mack. They're still pursuing the big man out in California, Connor Clifford. They're still pursuing Dikembe Dixon in West Virginia. Frank Martin's been very busy recruiting people. So Jaron Cena is one that he is not going to get. 800-956-7266. It's Sports Talk presented by the Palmetto Project. Call 888-998-4646 to enroll in a health plan and avoid paying next year's tax penalty. Again, that number, 888-998-4646. Yeah, so that's one thing that really is concerning me about college basketball. It's gotten worse than college football. I mean, we don't have this kind of transferring. There are some transfers that happen in college football, but certainly not to the degree that we are seeing now here in college basketball. It is just ridiculous. The other thing I wanted to get into here tonight, if you want to join us, 800-956-7266, something that Dabo Swinney talked about on the conference call and other coaches have talked about as well, and that is the satellite camps that schools are setting up miles and miles and hundreds of miles away from their campus. The NCAA is going to have to do something about that. You can't allow schools to set up recruiting camps, and that's what they are. You can't allow schools to set up recruiting camps in the backyard of other schools that are hundreds of miles away. That's just another case of colleges and coaches circumventing the rules and not playing by the spirit of the rules.
I tell you what, it's good.
It's just ridiculous.
It's good you mentioned that because this story, I think it appeared today in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The Georgia State is already, with these satellite camps, drawn players who are letting the big schools look at them, and they've secured players from these camps with the big schools coming in. They've already now set up deals in June with Nebraska, Penn State, and their Georgia State is negotiating with Notre Dame to come sometime this summer.
Okay, we're back. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Open for your phone calls, your comments, your questions here on Sports Talk presented by the Feddo Project. Call 888-998-4646 to enroll in a health plan and avoid paying next year's tax penalty. Pro, you got some in-state college baseball to update.
Yes, bottom of the third inning, College of Charleston hit Coastal with a 4 spot. They lead now in the top of the fourth. College of Charleston 4, Coastal Carolina 1. In other action, Furman, I looked up, Furman had a 5-4 lead, but in the bottom of the third, Charleston Southern started their bats heating up. So now it's in the bottom of the third. Already we got a slugfest going. Charleston Southern 8, Furman 5 in that ball game. And up in Rock Hill tonight, it's Winthrop 4 and East Tennessee State 2.
All right. Furman playing some pretty good baseball after beating South Carolina last night and playing some good baseball tonight as well. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Glad to see the high school executive committee take its action from last night about reorganization of the classes beginning in 2016, going to the 5-class setup and dividing schools in that manner and hopefully eliminating these double championships. Now, keep in mind this. The high school league does not set the championships for the classes. That is left up to the individual classes. So people, people want to blame the body in Columbia, the high school league, the people in that building for a lot of things that happen in high school sports in South Carolina. They don't create the policy. They just enforce the policy fairly and evenly across the board. It's the individual conferences that have set up these double championships over the years. So let's hope that this will solve that problem and that we will not continue to have the 2 championships in a particular conference as we've had in recent years. Maybe this will solve that problem, and maybe it's going to solve the problem of dealing with the public schools that are members of the high school league. Some of these schools have been dominating in sports, nobody seemed to care until they started winning football championships like at Christchurch. And Christchurch, with their long winning streak, that's when everybody started saying, well, whoa, wait a second here. There's something kind of funny. And now, these schools are going to be forced to play up into a higher classification than ordinarily they would be in based on their enrollment. Is that going to level the playing field, you think?
I'm not sure, Corn, but it's interesting how things change in a region, because let's face it, South Carolina's population is exploding exponentially. And this is sort of the discussions they have and have been having in the East and Midwest for years, where you see these private schools or charter schools with championship caliber teams, teams that recruited like a Chris Webber to Country Day and that sort of thing. Now it's come south.
Sports Talk here on a Wednesday night. Glad you're with us. Our good friend Jimmy Coggins from WKDK in Newberry reminds us, of course, we mentioned that Newberry College ranked 6th in their region this week. He also tells us Newberry's on a 13-game winning streak. Coach Russell Triplett's been named the South Atlantic Conference Coach of the Year, and the conference tournament starts this week. So thank you, Mr. Coggins, for that information. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. One more recruiting note to pass along to you that I see here floating on Twitter. Clemson has offered a 2018 quarterback, Joey Gatewood. He is he's pretty big timer, already a guy in the 2018 class, which would make him 2018, 3 years. He's probably 15 years old, 14, 15 years old. And he's picked up an offer from Clemson, but a lot of folks are offering him pro. So Tigers have identified a guy they like moving forward. Clemson football, I was talking with someone today knowledgeable about football. We were just kind of discussing the status of things with Clemson in South Carolina, and this person told me, and we're just talking off the record, but this is a very knowledgeable football person, who holds no favoritism one way or the other. But his words to me were, I don't know if South Carolina will beat Clemson again. And he said this because of the way Clemson's recruiting is going right now and the kind of recruits that they are getting, the high level of recruits that they are getting, and, of course, the current stash of players that they have in the program, beginning with the quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Interesting that this person would say that. I can't – I mean, certainly South Carolina is going to beat them again. But, in the immediate future, if all things being equal in terms of injuries not being a major debilitating factor either way, when they line up, I'd say right now Clemson, if they played today, I'd say Clemson would be a 2-touchdown favorite over South Carolina.
Well, it depends on how the defense improves because, let's face it,
if they played today, based on what you know today, if they were lining up and playing today, I think Clemson's a 2-touchdown favorite.
I don't think so because Deshaun Watson isn't ready to play yet.
Well, good point.
You said
if they're lining up and playing in August. Yeah, you got me. You got me on that one, Pro. If we're lining up and playing in August, I'd say Clemson would be a 2-touchdown favorite.
I would say it's a toss-up because I don't know what Clemson's defense has. That's the big question mark to me. I know they got some talented players, but until that defense is put in concert in a game, I don't know what they have. So I still say a toss-up. Here's the other interesting thing. People talk about Marcus Lattimore, and they talk about Alshon Jeffries, and they talk about Jadeveon Clowney. But if you look at the recruiting services, most of those years, Clemson still out-recruited South Carolina even during those years.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I think by and large, if you go by the services, Clemson usually annually out-recruit South Carolina from the standpoint of the marquee player. Now, South Carolina had its run with its domination in state there for a few years, but Clemson has turned it back their way in a big, big way here in recent years, and I don't know what South Carolina can do to change it. I mean, Clemson, they have a great package to sell right now. First of all, it starts at the top with their head coach, and it permeates through their staff, their effort in recruiting. It's nonstop. It's relentless. And, they never give up on a player, even if he is recruited elsewhere and he's a player that they want to get. I mean, I'm thinking about the guys coming in this 2015 class, for example, Christian Wilkins, the big defensive lineman out of Connecticut. I mean, this is a guy that visited Clemson a couple of times. They recruited him very hard. Venables got on him. Now, this is a kid that never said a single solitary word hardly during recruiting, but he had Notre Dame. It was thought he was going to go there. He had the Northeastern schools. He had Michigan on him. He goes to Clemson. The guys out of Florida, Ray McLeod, could have gone to any of the major Florida schools. He's going to Clemson. Dion, help me. Dion, what's the kid's name? Name's escaping me right now. The other big-time receiver out of Florida that they have coming in. Another one that could have gone to any of the Florida schools. Thank you, Dion Kane. Could have gone to any of the Florida schools. Could have gone anywhere. Going to Clemson. They are identifying high-level players, getting involved early, building the relationships, finding connections via coaches or family members that are working in their favor, and they're getting it done.
Well, the interesting thing, though, Phil, is this. If you look back in the past, Florida State actually out-recruited Florida when Spurrier was at Florida. Now, some coaches have different ideas about recruiting. Some people don't like to chase the 5 guy. They want a guy that they see they've got talent. They may need molding in some image. Remember, the successful quarterbacks that Steve Spurrier had weren't the highly recruited quarterbacks he got. It was most of the guys he either had as a preferred walk-on or maybe a 2 or 3 star. That's the way they recruit. Now, others say, well, you got to go after the big fish. Baylor doesn't. Look at them. TCU doesn't. Look at them. Boise State, look at them. There's a lot of players out there that don't have the cachet of having stars hooked to their names, but they're great football players. And this is the interesting thing about South Carolina, because of their losing record, having their recruiting class pilfered, is the fact that I think other schools recognize, this staff actually finds diamonds in the rough. Let's go pluck some of these guys off their roster because they pretty much know what they're looking at. So it's interesting how both teams have different philosophies as far as recruiting is concerned.
Well, I mean, they both have the same philosophy in that they want to get the best players. I mean, how good were the USC defensive coaches when they had Jadeveon Clowney, when they had Melvin Ingram, when they had Stephon Gilmore, when they had Devontae Holloman? I could go on and on. The better players make for better coaches. Now, I know Spurrier is a big believer in player development. Get me a good player, a player who's dedicated to becoming a better football player, and we'll develop him. And that's why he likes to take shots at the teams that he beats, that are the teams that recruit at a higher level. You don't think he gets great joy out of beating Georgia and Tennessee?
Oh, he loves golf.
Knowing that those teams all recruit at a higher level. When he beat Alabama a few years ago, knowing that Alabama always gets the best players, to Spurrier, that's a star for him. That shows that Spurrier can out-develop and out-coach these other teams. That's what he hangs his hat on.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a lot easier to start with the best players and work your way down if you're able to fill up your roster with the best players. I'm just saying, Clemson's doing a hell of a job of recruiting right now. They are as hot as any team in the country. They're recruiting at a level of the very best in the country. Ohio State, Florida State, Alabama, Notre Dame, and this is something that's been going on with them last few years. And, for a team that has only won one conference championship since 1991, Clemson does a very good job of creating a high opinion for itself. If you follow them on social media, if you follow the videos that they put out, if you listen to the verbiage that they put out, they have a pretty high opinion. Their fans have a pretty high opinion of their football program. The bottom line, however, and the fact is, they've won one ACC championship since 1991. The results haven't kept up with the verbiage. Now, that may change here in the future. I don't know. Are they better than Florida State? Will they be able to beat Florida State to win their division? Will they be able to beat Miami? Will they be able to beat Georgia Tech? We'll find out. But they are definitely getting after it and doing well in recruiting. Back in a moment. right, we are back. It is Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Looks like Ben Howland starting to get it done at Mississippi State, if you know what I mean. Reportedly, a top recruit, Malik Newman, whose father played at Mississippi State, 6'4", point guard, one of the tops in the country. And he reportedly is going to go to Mississippi State over Kentucky, Kansas, Ole Miss, LSU, NC State. So there you go. That would be a huge pickup for Mississippi State if indeed he announces that on Friday. That's when he is going to be announcing his decision. 800-956-7266 is our phone number to Hank in Columbia. We go next. Hank, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
Doing fine, Phil. I was calling, you always talk about the recruiting thing. I remember when Spurs first came here, and him and a couple of coaches, I think Beamer said the same thing, felt like if you got a recruiting class that stayed in the top 20, top 25, that basically you would have the tools of the athletes, depending on how you coach and develop, to compete for good seasons and championships. And not last year withstanding, South Carolina's been able to do that. And when you mentioned some of those players, Gilmore was very highly recruited, so was Clowney and Lattimore. But folks like Melvin Ingram and DeMarco that's still in the league, and a lot of those folks were like those 3 stars. And I just, with recruiting, I think you got to know what fits your scheme and identify it. And that's why Oregon can play the way they do and compete for championships, and Baylor. And I think that's what Spurs always done. He used to brag about it. Remember against Georgia, he would say, Georgia always got the best players, but they always beat them. Florida always beat them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the point we were making. I mean, Spurrier gets great joy. It's great joy beating these teams that supposedly recruit at a higher level than they do. I'm just saying, in my opinion, and I was sharing the thoughts of somebody, a very knowledgeable football person. We were just talking about football, and I just thought that was very interesting. He would make that comment, and he was basing it on the fact that Clemson right now is recruiting at such a high level.
And really, if you go back to it, as nice as our recruiting class was with the Garcias and Lattimore, when we beat Alabama that year, we didn't have near the amount of star power they had on the other side of the ball.
No, of course not. I mean, South Carolina is usually, when they're playing a high-level team from the SEC, when they're playing in Alabama, when they're playing in LSU, when they're playing Florida, they are facing when they play Georgia. I mean, they're playing programs that generally out-recruit South Carolina. You go back and look if you go by the rankings, I always hesitate to bring that up, but there's no other way to avoid it. If you go by the rankings, I mean, generally speaking, those teams are going to be ranked higher than the Gamecocks in recruiting. They've just been able, for whatever reason in recent years, to beat these teams more than the other way around. I mean, their record against Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, and Clemson, they don't play Alabama enough to count, but their combined record the last 5 years against those teams, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, and Clemson. I mean, it's pretty impressive considering how those 4 teams out-recruit South Carolina year in and year out. Can you do the math real quick in your head, Pro? What's the Gamecocks' combined record? Well, let's see. Last 5 years, they're 4-1. Well, they beat Clemson 5 in a row, but let's just stick to 5-year period. So they're 4-1 against Clemson the last 5 years.
2-2 against Tennessee, I guess. 2-2.
2-2, yeah, because they lost last 2 to Tennessee. So 2-2 to Tennessee. So that would make them 6-3. What are they against Florida?
I want to say 3-1.
That would make them 9-4. And then against Georgia, I think they're also 3-1, aren't they?
Yeah.
So that would make them 12-5 in 17 games the last 5 years against those 4 opponents. So what does it all mean? What does it all mean?
Well, you got to have the players. He was right when he said you have to have the players that fit your system. But I also think probably one of the things we don't talk about enough is you got to have some team leaders in that locker room who can stare down their teammates and say, look, let's get it done. I mean, that is an unsung part of recruiting we don't talk about, and that's something you can't see character until they hit a college field. And sometimes you have to luck out and find those leaders who really can push other players over the top.
Another recruiting note, I just saw on Twitter, South Carolina has offered a power forward, Eric Cobb. He is from Maryland. See if I can get some more information on him very quickly here. This is a 2015 prospect. Eric Cobb, he is a power forward from Baltimore, 6'9", 235, and Kansas State was an offer for him. Apparently, he had committed to Kansas State. Kansas State adds power forward. I'm just going back here, and maybe this is an old tweet or something. Why would South Carolina – is this the guy that they offered because of recruitment power? No, it's in the same guy. So anyway, South Carolina has offered this this power forward out of Maryland, Eric Cobb, for the 2015 class. So we'll see what happens there if South Carolina gets more strongly involved with him. I tell you, they are, talking about recruiting, they are definitely getting out there and getting the offers out and trying to rebuild this roster. You got to wonder, with them continuing to put out offers, of course, Demetrius Henry is gone. You wonder about the status of Sheik Shepard, and if he's still going to be a part of the basketball program at South Carolina moving forward. As I look at their roster right now, they've got 3 seniors in Cavicius, and Carrera. Juniors, they'll have Mackey, Notice, Theus Jr. if he stays, and Thornwell. That's 7 players. Sophomore Stroman, 8 players, and right now Shepherd would be 9. Redshirt freshman would be Blanton, and now they have that's 10 players, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 10, 14. And they have 4 commitments right now, so they're at 14. Obviously, somebody else is leaving, and they're still looking to bring in more people. My guess is Reggie Theus Jr. I see no reason why he'll be back, and apparently Shepherd is not going to be back. That would be 2 more. Outside of that, I don't know of anybody else that I wouldn't want back. I mean, exactly. I think Justin Mackey made great progress last season.
Yeah, the concussion held him back. Yeah, the concussion held him back.
Personally, as an outsider, I would not jettison him.
I would either, because he even came in the game cold in the Ole Miss game in the tournament and promptly hit a big 3 that kept him in the ball game. By the way, these baseball scores: 6 innings, Winthrop 6, East Tennessee State 3, Furman and College of Charleston still a slugfest, 9-6. Charleston Southern in the 6th inning, and one other score to report on if I can find it. And College of Charleston leading Coastal 7-1 in the 7th inning.
Thank you, Pro. Thank you, State Man. Thanks to all of you around the state for being with us tonight. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow night here on Sports Talk.